Great, welcome back. So in this video we're going to talk about the definition of a crisis. Now when I was in the Army we always talked about a crisis as an endangerment of life, limb, or eyesight. Okay? We're not exactly talking about this kind of crisis here because we're talking about organizational crises. But we can look at an organizational crisis as a moment of decision. Okay? A moment when you realize that whatever you're doing is going to lead to some sort of a negative outcome, or whatever you are doing has led to this potential negative outcome, or whatever you're doing is going to continue to make this negative outcome worse. Okay? And crises are interesting, especially from an entrepreneurship perspective, because they require us to shed our normally existing practices. And just as an example, think about this COVID epidemic, right? Coronavirus. It is making us ask questions that we would not normally ask ourselves. And it's making us question whether the ways in which we are doing our routines, our activities, running our businesses is actually the best way to do those things. Okay? I've written about my own research. When I was in the military, we would have organizational crises periodically when we realized that what we were doing had to stop. And this opens up a space for entrepreneurship, right? Because it's that gap, right? So you know that there's this gap that it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger until it turns into an emergency. But for the entrepreneur, that's your time to fill in something. Right? So that's why crises are so important in the study of entrepreneurship. And specifically, this is why crises are important in this jack-in-the-box case, right? They may have been engaging in certain behaviors that were unhealthy or unsanitary that result in some deaths, but it was also a chance for Jack-in-the-Box, which is hard to say whether they took it or not based on the way this case is written, but it was an opportunity for Jack-in-the-Box to revamp its procedures to engage with the public and hopefully make people feel safer that these kinds of things wouldn't happen again. I remember my dad always said, well, Jack-in-the-Box, every time one of these crises happens, they're extra careful, like right afterwards, so I feel better about going there than somewhere else. Maybe. But the point is, this is your definition of an organizational crisis. A moment when you decide to try something new, when you decide not to keep doing whatever negative thing it was that you were doing before. You stop, okay? And that's where your room for entrepreneurship and innovation comes in. Great. So in our next video, we're going to talk about stakeholder theory. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe down below and post any comments if you have any questions. Great. I'll see you in the next video.